I want to welcome you to SST 200. This is the social studies course for all of you that are enrolled as elementary school teachers. And in this welcome podcast, I want to give you an overview of this particular course. And you can see that in front of you, I'm going to talk to you about a little bit of an introduction, the purposes of the course, how the course is structured and the expectations, and then how to get started. Now, when we talk about social studies, I just have to tell you, I'm a social studies guy. So to me, this is really a fun course. For a lot of people, it's probably not their first choice in a course. In fact, one of the first articles I ever wrote from the collegiate level was about teaching social studies for the 21st century. And I started the article by saying, social studies is the subject students love to hate. And there's been a lot of pretty poor presentation of the social studies over the years. So I get it. I understand it. But it need not be that way. I mean, I really think social studies is absolutely fascinating. It typically includes 4 areas: history, geography, economics, and political science. But as you're going to see within the elementary structure of social studies, in grades 6 and 7, it truly is a cultural study in which these 4 areas happen to be wrapped up in. But the one thing about the social studies that I find intriguing is that it can cross over in the curriculum. I mean, in math, I can introduce concepts of doing timelines from where we were then to where we are now. We do a little bit of simple mathematical subtraction. When we're working with maps, we're working with scales, so we're measuring 1 inch equals so many miles. Language arts, of course, we have all kinds of things that we include in the social studies, especially when it comes from culture and writing. The sciences, oh my goodness, when we talk about geography and we have to talk about where a place is located, then we can talk about its elevation, we can talk about its location, we can talk about wind currents, sea currents, plate tectonics. It goes without saying, art and music. If we're going to study culture, then we're going to study some art and some music. And then there's always PE and health, where you go, how does that come in? Well, we talk about certain things that went on in those cultures. Different cultures have games and have a history of interesting games, and they also had interesting practices. The Aztecs were known for doing major brain surgery on people with obsidian knives. And then we move into more recent history and we see great medical advances using robotics. That's all part of the history. So one of the things I like to say, let me move my little picture here, is that social studies provides the perfect subject to bring context and connection to each curriculum subject and across the curriculum grades K to 12. Well, in our course here, there's a couple purposes that I want you to be aware of. Number one purpose here is for you to refresh and learn the social studies content required to pass the elementary MTTC. That's the Michigan Test for Teacher Certification. Before you student teach, you have to pass that test. And part of that test has a social studies component in it, and that's the purpose of this course. But there's 2 other sub-purposes as well. We really need you to be prepared with an understanding of knowing the standards. In this case, they're called GLICs or GLICkies, as some people say. They're called grade level content expectations of what is taught in the social studies at each level. You need to know those things in order to plan lessons. And the second thing is, this is going to help you in your preparation for success as you further yourself in our School of Ed Teacher Prep program. EDU 354 is a methods course in which you learn to teach and develop lessons at the elementary level for social studies. And in your student teaching, that'd be EDU 450, you have to teach in the core content areas. So social studies most likely is a core content area for you to teach in. So you need to be prepared for these particular things. So let's take this one by one. The first purpose, to refresh and learn the social studies content so that you can pass the MTTC. Even before I go any further, I can already hear what I have heard so many elementary people say before, but I'm going to teach special ed. I'm going to teach early childhood. And there is a misunderstanding of what you are expected to teach and what you are certified to teach. So let me clarify that for you, and then I think you're going to see why SST 200 is a required course for you. On the left side, I have an illustration of a bunch of pencils in a can. Let's call that can your elementary teaching certificate. Now, for you as an elementary person, you are going to be considered certified to teach K-8 all subjects. You hear me? All subjects. So you won't find too many schools in which they are K-8 all subjects, but there is a school not far from our Spring Arbor University main campus. It's called White Pine Academy, and they have a 6th grade teacher teaches all subjects. A 7th grade teacher teaches all subjects. An 8th grade teacher teaches all subjects. So you, by virtue of your certification, need to know all the content in order to teach all subjects from kindergarten all the way through 8th grade. So now we get to see where social studies fits into this. For those of you that say, yeah, but I'm going to be a reading specialist, or I just want to work with English language learners, I have a TESOL endorsement. That's what you have. ECE, SED, math, integrated science, social studies, reading, TESOL, those are what we call endorsements. And the pencil on the right represents your endorsement. Notice it stands alone. You don't get to be a teacher in Michigan by having an endorsement. You only get to be a teacher in Michigan by having a certification. And your certification will be elementary. And in order to get an elementary certification, you have to pass the MTTC. And what's on the MTTC? Social studies stuff. So SST 200 is there to help prepare you for that. I went on to the MDE website for teacher certifications and pulled up one of last spring's student teachers. And this is what this person's certification looks like. Now, I blocked out their name and then their certification number, but they have a provisional teaching certificate. That's the first certificate that you get as a new teacher. Notice their program, elementary K-5 all subjects. So a self-contained classroom, like most elementaries are, kindergarten through 5th grade. However, K-8, all subjects self-contained classroom. So K-5 all subjects means if you're a 2nd grade teacher, you are teaching social studies, science, math, language arts. And with the reduction of budgets, sometimes you're teaching art, music, and PE as well, all subjects. On the bottom of this, it says his subject area, and you can see I put in parentheses endorsement. That's where the mathematics comes in. So the mathematics is going to be a 6-8 endorsement for this particular person. So I just wanted to clarify this with you. You are going to be an elementary teacher. So when you're asked, are you elementary, are you secondary, please don't tell people that you're early childhood, because you're not. You don't get to be an early childhood certified teacher unless you first become an elementary certified teacher. So having this knowledge now, I hope you understand that in order to be well versed in the subject areas of K-8, all subjects, we have programmed you to take 2 math classes, SST 200 if you're not a social studies major, NSC 200 if you're not an integrated science major, Art 152, Music 152, HBR 101 and 201. Why? Because the content in all of those courses is on the MTTC. So back to our purpose of SST 200, we want you to be able to refresh and learn the social studies content required to pass the MTTC. Now the second part of this is that I need you to be prepared in an understanding of knowing the GLICs and what's taught at each grade level. And I also want you to be prepared for your future performance in the School of Education. I'm all about building you up and helping you be successful beyond means so that when you walk into your student teaching, you're ahead of the ball game, and when you leave student teaching, they don't want you to go. They want to keep you, and I would like them to hire you, and I bet you would too. So I'm going to put a couple names down on the left side. Miss Bellion, Miss Evans, Mr. Carl, and Mrs. Joseph. Who are those people? Well, Miss Bellion was my 4th and 5th grade teacher. She taught me to love social studies. Miss Evans built upon that love for social studies. Mr. Carl made me an enthusiastic learner of the social studies. And Mrs. Joseph, her 11th grade American history class, she allowed me to teach a lesson one day to all of the 11th graders all day long, the causes of World War I. That experience sealed it for me to be a teacher. So what am I saying about this? I'm saying that you as a future teacher are going to hold the key to developing enthusiastic, lifelong learners. That's what we do in teaching. And guess what? You need to be an enthusiastic learner yourself. So if you're one of those people where social studies just really isn't your cup of tea and you really don't like it, you are going to have to learn to like it because you will be teaching it. Just like you're going to teach science, just like you're going to teach math, just like you're going to teach language arts. It's a core curriculum subject area. The nice thing is this, at the elementary level, there's not a lot of social studies that's taught in kindergarten, in grade 1, in grade 2. It begins to expand in grade 3, builds a little bit more in grade 4, and builds quite a bit more in grade 5. Most 6th, 7th, 8th grade social studies classes are taught at the middle school level. For some of you, that might excite you. For others of you, you may never see yourself teaching at a middle school, junior high level. And that's okay. But you still need to know the content of what's going to be taught in grades 6, 7, and 8 because it's on the MTTC. Okay? We've got that all taken care of. So this course is structured in a lot of different formats that I hope you appreciate. The first thing is, and I'm not trying to be Captain Obvious on this at all, but this is an online course. And my understanding is this sometimes is the first online learning environment for some of our education people. And if you have never taken an online course, I need to let you know that it requires you to be highly organized, proactive, and diligent. I also understand that when people take this course, they have either an enthusiastic attitude or they're just a little bit of so-so. I just need you to know that so-so doesn't help you to be proactive and diligent. This is not a course you can stab at. It's a course you need to build into your calendar. This is a sacred time. Nobody can interfere with me. I cannot go out and do fun things. I have to work on my course. So the tips for success in any online course, and especially for this one, know thy syllabus and course calendar. Those things are gold. You cannot claim ignorance in an online class. There is no grace for that. You have to be on top of things. So I suggest you don't try to meet the deadlines, but rather would you work ahead on deadlines? I mean, we really are going to try to post things so that they are open like 2 weeks in advance for you. So there's no reason for you to get behind if you're working ahead. And then the other thing I really want to emphasize is I need you to demonstrate the professional qualities of being trustworthy and practicing integrity. There can't be any plagiarism. What am I talking about? Well, the reading quizzes in this course are the same reading quizzes that are given semester after semester after semester after semester. It would be real easy to go back and check with a former student and say, can you share your materials with me? But you don't need to do that because you get to use your notes when you take our reading quizzes. It's open notes, all right? But we have caught people cheating on the midterm and the final. And how do we catch them? Because they're not being trustworthy and they're not showing integrity. We don't use the same midterm and final. We create new ones all the time. So you can go back and see what one looks like from a friend, but it doesn't mean that you can copy their answers and put it into your test. And that's where people get in trouble, and we do report them to academic affairs. Okay? It's going to be a disposition. It will be a black mark in the School of Ed. One that doesn't stop you from becoming a teacher. But it does mean that, well, we have trustworthy issues. The other thing is I need you to be truthful. I can't tell you how many times someone will want an exception, and when I probe and find out and ask the questions that I need to ask about why they're asking for an exception, they are not truthful about not being on top of things. I've had students outright lie. Don't do that. The teaching profession is a very honorable profession. We are looking for people that show the highest levels of integrity, trustworthiness, and truthfulness. Do not try to sidestep those issues out of convenience or just because you didn't quite get to something. You got to own it, people. All right? That's my little sermon on that area. So how are we going to get started? Well, first of all, I need you to understand that Blackboard is set. There is nothing I can do to alter and change any of the documents that are in the Blackboard. SAU Online controls all the content. And when the content has been created by a previous professor and then passed on to another professor, as this one has been to me, it may have things in it that the previous professor mentions himself about, or it has their particular way of stating things, and that's the way it's going to stay. This course cannot be redeveloped until next summer. So it is what it is. All right? So you may find Jamie Isham's name or Professor Isham on different things. She was the previous course designer and course professor. A fun little story about Jamie was she was one of my first Spring Arbor University students in education classes. And then when she became a teacher, I went and observed one of our student teachers in her classroom, and she was so incredibly talented as a middle school social studies teacher. Then she finished a master's degree, so I hired her to go supervise student teachers, and then she came in and I mentored her how to become a college professor, and she took over a course I was teaching. And now I just think it's so ironic that I'm taking over a course that she developed, because she has returned to the classroom as a social studies teacher. So the course is very well developed. It's clearly outlined. It's what we're going to work with. Now, there could be some concern, some confusion, and you need to contact me. Well, I do have an office that's in the Sarah DeCann. It's in the School of Education. If you're on campus, you can look for me, but here's the deal. I teach a lot of online, so I have a limited amount of time that I'm in my office, and typically you need to make an appointment. Don't just think that by dropping by you're going to find me, because when I'm on campus, oftentimes I'm on campus because I have to be in meetings elsewhere. So if you need an appointment, we'll make an appointment. Contact me. Email is the best way. Phoning me is not always the best way because I might be out of my office for 3 straight days. Emailing is always the best. I will make myself available during a certain time period during the week for being on Google Hangout. So if you've got a question with the class, you can shoot an email over to me and say, I'd like to meet with you on Google Hangout. We'll get you into the Google Hangout and we'll be able to talk through some things. I'll be available for you, and I'll let you know what those dates are as soon as we can nail down some things about our student teachers and my personal calendar as well. With that, last thing I want to say about contacting me is that I want you to start practicing the professional trait of using titles. When you become a teacher, student teacher, or you're in your methods course, you are not going to have students calling you by your first name. They will be calling you by a title, Mr., Miss, Mrs. I want to see you practicing that same professional courtesy with me, and I would encourage you to do it with all of your professors. They have titles. It may not be doctor. They may not have their doctorate. It might be professor, which is fine. You can call me Professor Linton. You can call me Mr. Linton. I was Mr. Linton for 24 years as a school teacher. That's fine. You can call me Dr. Linton. That's fine. But please, extend the professional courtesy and never, ever email me, call me, or have a conversation with me using my first name, because that is not what we do in education. You'll find when you get in schools, you observe teachers, they do not call each other by first names. They call each other by title. The only time they use first names is when they are alone and away from students. So let's do that. It's a professional obligation, and you're entering into it, so start feeling good about the title that you will be given. The next steps, I want you to go to Blackboard if you haven't already. Make sure that you take a look at the syllabus, the course calendar. The Week 1 podcast is going to be right on the flip side of this one here. I want you to know that weeks 2 and 3, we're going to be looking at the Eastern and Western Hemisphere. And I'll show you in the next slide what the textbooks may look like for that area of study. You know, we have some of these textbooks in the curriculum lab in White Library. Don't check them out. Okay? I'm going to put a couple on reserve if you want to go look at them. I don't want them missing because I want as many people to look at them as possible. And then when we get into week 4, it's going to be U.S. history, overview, and Michigan history. You know, you really need to have a base level of prior knowledge to understand this material. So I've given you 2 links here. I mean, Wikipedia is a real short history of the United States, but you're going to find out that that's a great way to refresh yourself coming into this course and adding content knowledge. And the other one is a Michigan history themes. Oh, that's fascinating. Don't get me started on Michigan history. It's one of my favorite areas. Michigan has such a fascinating history. In fact, before when I said, you know, how do you fit PE into social studies? Well, here's a little tidbit for you. Do you realize that one of the bloodiest massacres of British soldiers in Michigan occurred when Native Americans feigned a lacrosse game? We'll see if you can figure out the rest of it. All right, so let's take a look at this little podcast here. I'm sorry my picture here gets in the way of the wording and stuff. I got to find a way to hide this thing, and I cannot do that. Or maybe it is hiding and you can see it and I don't. But week 1 for SST 200, we address a couple things. These GLICs, grade level content expectations, and what are the subjects you're going to teach in the social studies K through 8, and then the social studies sources. You see, we use a variety of sources in the social studies with our students, and you need to know what they are and which ones to use and how to use them appropriately. Core democratic values. This is integrated across all of the social studies curriculum. And then the last thing, 5 themes of geography. Again, this is integrated across the social studies curriculum. Now, you may be asking yourself, well, I thought there were common cores for social studies. Well, there aren't. They're working on them, but I don't know when they're going to release them. But here's what I can tell you. It took the state of Michigan at least 5 years to generate the social studies standards under the GLICs. And so the Common Core social studies are not going to come together very, very quickly either. There are some Common Core standards for integrating language, speech, writing, English in the social studies, and technology integrations, especially in science, through the Common Cores and social studies. But there's nothing Common Core social studies. So as you get into Blackboard, there's going to be some things in there that hand out for readings and also an overview with some practice test questions and stuff. And you're going to find objectives on those. So the objectives for the GLICs are real simple. You need to be able to explain the purpose of them. Okay? You need to list those basic content areas of what's taught at each grade level, and you need to be able to demonstrate how to read the GLICs. Now, I'm not asking you to go to this website that's right here, and sorry about that, go to that website there and download this whole document. This is the K through 8 standards, okay? But you do want to pay close attention to page 4, 6 to 10, 45, 43 to 45, and 72 for this particular area. You'll be going back and forth now. From this point on, you'll be looking at those GLICs. So you can download that document from the MDE. It's a PDF file. Save it on your computer and reference it. If you're the kind of person that needs to print it, go ahead, print it and hold on to it. But you need to learn those things, because even though those GLICs are there, they're your benchmark standards, they are not your curriculum. Neither is your textbook a curriculum. Your curriculum is developed by the school district or whomever they work with to develop. Here's what we are going to teach. The GLICs are nothing more than the standards that need to be addressed within the curriculum. The other thing we want you to do is be able to distinguish between what's a primary source and a secondary source. So I have a little illustration here. You can read it at your leisure, what a primary source is made up of, what a secondary source is made up of. And then here's this other objective, is to identify the most useful sources. Well, we're going to take a look at an almanac, an atlas, biographical dictionary, encyclopedia, gazette, or historical atlas in the internet. You need to know which one of those should best be used for different scenarios in your teaching. Then you need to guide students to use them to determine, is this a primary document? Is this a secondary source? Which one is more authentic? Which one is going to give us the most information that is more accurate? Is this fact? Is this opinion? Those are important things we teach in the social studies, because we're not just teaching fact, 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 which is why social studies has always gotten such a bad name, but rather we're teaching an integrated approach of learning across curriculums with critical thinking. So this will be fun. And then we're also going to take a look at what are the core democratic values. So this little poster here actually outlines the different core democratic values. You can look at those. There's going to be some readings you have to do on those as well. Now, a lot of the readings we do in this course are all links to outside sources. Sometimes those links break, and so if you find that a break isn't working, please contact me immediately. My job is to make sure that the links are working at the time you're getting into the course, and all of week 1 links are supposed to be working right now. That doesn't mean they'll be working tomorrow, okay? And so then there's also the 5 themes of geography, and you're going to learn about those and how we apply them. So this week we open. Course calendar is there. You can take a look at it. You can start to work ahead. I have not taken a look at week 2, week 3 yet, but I will do that. And I'll put together a podcast for week 2 and week 3, because they're going to come together. Week 2 and week 3 deal with what's taught at grades 6 and 7, and that's your Eastern and Western Hemisphere studies. It's really a cultural understanding of the different regions of the world, specific countries in those regions, and we're going to take a look at the history, geography, culture, economics, political systems that are wrapped up in those particular hemispheres and the countries, specific countries and regions within those areas. So that's it. Welcome to Social Studies SST 200. I'm looking forward to being your professor in this, and I'm really looking forward to you becoming an enthusiastic learner and being ready to teach this to your students. So don't forget, course calendar, syllabus, your reading notes. So start reading your stuff, start taking notes. Don't forget to participate on discussion board. And don't forget to take your reading quizzes, and make sure you post everything and take your quizzes within the time specifications, or those things close and you lose the points. And I don't want that to happen with you. I want this to be a great learning experience for all of you. All right, God bless. Have a great, great semester.